Good morning and welcome to the Lynas Corporation results briefing for the first quarter of the 2019 financial year. We're joined today by Lynas CEO Amanda Lacaze, CFO Gaudenz Sturzenegger, and General Counsel and Company Secretary Andrew Arnold. I'll now hand over to Amanda Lacaze to commence the briefing. Please go ahead, Amanda.
Good morning, everybody. I hope that life is good wherever you are. So I'm really delighted with this quarter's results that we're announcing this morning. I've had a number of investors ask me over the past 3 or 4 months as we've been facing some political issues here in Malaysia. They've asked me, what does this mean for the business? And I've assured them that we have been operating business as usual. That is, the plant's been making product every day. Customers have been placing orders every day. We've been dispatching stock, sending invoices, and they've been paying us for the stock that we've sent them. And you can see from today's results that that is indeed the case. As we face some of the headwinds that we've faced here within Malaysia, I can tell you that every single person who works within Lynas understands that the very best response to those who want to speak against us is to be running a successful business. So I think that you can see that in some of the key elements of the results this quarter. Of course, by far the one which excites us most is the fact that in September we actually produced over 600 tonnes of NdPr. And that result, we'd originally targeted to do that in the first quarter of calendar 2019. We're delighted to have brought it in early. It's a reflection of the investments that we have made in Project Next, and some of the most important elements to that are actually the recoveries have really significantly stepped up here in Malaysia in particular, which has seen us really be able to produce a lot more out of an equivalent concentrate input. But the 600 tonnes is fabulous. We've not ticked the box on absolute sustainability, as you would guess, because we've done it once. We need to do it, I think I remember, 6 times to make a to make a trend. However, we are very pleased with the performance of all of the upgrades that we put in place as part of Project Next. So the market is reasonably subdued at present, as we've mentioned, particularly inside China. There are a few things which are domestic influences which are causing the price to be pretty flat, including some regulatory requirements for redesign of some of the electric bikes and those sorts of things, which have just seen sort of a temporary lull. But we don't change any of our views around the long-term health of this market and the long-term prospect. Operationally, as I've said, things are going well. The market is so-so, but we've had a very good quarter. We've been restocking in Japan, where the market is absolutely buoyant. Demand is high, and the Japanese magnet makers are continuing to increase their output both for their domestic market and internationally. So just a few words on the regulatory situation here in Malaysia. As we've indicated in the report, very pleasingly over the last week or so in particular, we have started to get through the various approvals that we have lodged applications for over the last several months. This is for us a very good indication of sort of the business as usual position. and takes away many of the risks that we might have seen in the near term for the business. With the only one remaining is our ability to process in excess of our current limit on the number of tonnes of concentrate we can process. And this is a two-part approval, and we've got the first part of the approval and we're waiting for the second part. So really, I think, the result speaks for itself. I'm sure that you've all read it. I particularly love, sort of Dylan's note in terms of reflecting on our performance. And as I said here, we remain absolutely focused on running a truly excellent business because it is the most important and the highest value thing we can do. So I'm very happy to take questions.
Our first question comes from the line of Katie Moises from Peterson Securities. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Amanda. A truly magnificent quarterly, and for me, probably the highlight wasn't your quarterly, but the fact it looks like you're really making headway with the Malaysian government. Just on the actual NdPr price, can you comment on why the China magnet market was a bit weaker in the quarter? Because my understanding is generally it's the European winter which impacts magnets, and obviously I'm nowhere near as up to date with you guys on that sort of thing.
No, so in China you have a lot of their magnet production is actually consumed domestically, and so there have been some changes there. The most significant, and I wish Paul was here, but he probably will come in a little bit later, is that e-bikes in China, if you've been there, you'll know that sometimes you'll be walking along and all of a sudden this bike will come, careening along beside you at about 80 kilometres an hour. And they've introduced legislation to speed limit those bikes. And so that has actually been a significant consumer of magnets. And so they've stopped producing as they're redesigned, which we think will be pretty quickly. And therefore, once those new motor designs are implemented, the demand will go back up again. What we actually do see is that, and I think we've indicated this before, that the ionic clay processing in southern China has been shut down for some time now, but there's still a reasonable amount of inventory in the supply chain in China, which people are really living off those stocks. So we don't see it as anything, sort of which is a harbinger of even a medium-term trend. It's just that, it really is about the Chinese domestic consumption, which is creating a bit of that weakness in the market.
Fantastic. Thanks, Amanda.
Thanks.
The next question comes from the line of Dylan Kelly from CLSA. Please go ahead.
Good morning, Amanda and team. Yes, I do agree with you that it was really great to see that 600-tonne number come up. Just two questions from me. Number one, could you didn't reveal your NdPr sales tonnes for the quarter, and I know that you haven't done that in the previous quarter as well, but just wanted to understand how much inventory you kept at the end of the quarter. Last time it was about 100 tonnes. Is that about the same this time around, and has that changed? The second question is also to do with your realised sales prices. That really was quite interesting for us in terms of how high it was. I want to understand what happened there. Was that a reflection of an NdPr premium, or did you sell a lot of heavy or SEG materials during the quarter? And if so, how much, how many tonnes was that, or can you give us some detail behind that? Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Dylan. The NdPr inventory, actually, off the top of my head, I can't tell you exactly how much we had on the 30th of September. Less than 100 and more than zero. Not not that really seriously low sort of number that we've often had before, where we might have had like 7 tons in inventory or something like that. So I don't know. I think it was maybe sort of like 40 or 50 tons. Bearing in mind that 600 tons a month, we make about 20 tons a day, and it takes 48 hours for us to have it cleared for available for sale. So not huge and not small. I once again just reinforce the only reason why we specifically mentioned the 100 tons at the end of June is that it was the only time we've ever, up until then, we had never finished a quarter with more than about, like I said, 7 tons is the number that I remember most clearly as ever finishing the quarter with. And so we were just wanting to highlight, I know that there are some people who keep a running spreadsheet on exactly how much inventory we have, and wanted to make it clear that it wasn't that we had that because we couldn't sell it. We had that because we chose not to sell it at the time. So where we are today, like I said, some destocking, but not huge. In terms of the sales and the sales price, really there's a couple of things. The first one is, even though we sold lots and lots of tons in total, the share of NdPr was much higher than in previous quarters. So if you have a look at, and I'm not going to tell you exactly how many tons of NdPr we sold, because it's not what we've sort of set as our normal reporting, and not particularly helpful in the market, in the actual rare earths market, to do so. But you will see that our total tons was about 400 tons less than it was last quarter, and basically that is less LA and CE, and so therefore the arithmetic says that the average selling price went up. So it's really a significant product mix effect. And yes, we did sell a reasonably substantial parcel of SEG. Price got back over our target price because, as I said before, the ionic clay mining in the south of China, which is the primary source of the heavies, has been shut down for an extended period of time. So there is a bit of increased demand for heavies, and so we were able to sell a parcel of heavies at a price that we thought was reasonable. So those are the two main influences.
Okay, fair enough. And just in terms of your SEG sort of inventory levels with the situation in China in terms of the shutdowns and the southern clays, do you think this is a trend that you're going to be able to draw down on more inventory in the next quarter, or is this just largely a one-off?
I think the settings are reasonably positive, but the more positive they get, the higher the target price I give Paul and Wayne. So, we don't have any, as you can see from the results, we don't have an urgency to sell this material. We don't need to be giving it away, and so we will watch the market sort of carefully. But I would think that so long as the ionic clay operations are shut down, that it's more likely to be favourable than unfavourable.
Okay, fair enough. That's great, Amanda.
Thanks, Dylan.
Thank you. The next question comes from the line of Chris Hux. Please ask your question.
Good morning, Amanda and your team. I'd just like to follow the other callers and compliment you on what was an outstanding quarter. Under no doubt a lot of duress, that's business, unfortunately, but it's, I think it's excellent to see the progress that's been made. Yes, I'm one of those dreaded people that keeps a spreadsheet on inventories. I'm sorry about that, so I won't ask any further questions on it at this point. But what I would like to know...
Not dreaded, Chris, just acknowledged. Not dreaded at all.
That's your public demeanour on it, Amanda. Anyway, look, I'm not going to go there. But what I am interested in is you've noted in the projected forward cost that there's a reduction in wages in the December quarter, and I've got two questions relating to that. The first one being that is that as a result of a permanent reduction in planned wages, or is it a temporary reduction due to the shutdown and potential frustration on production due to the regulatory environment? And just following on from that, I've extrapolated back that if you do cut back your NdPr by 400 tonnes, that means you're probably looking about 1,250 tonnes of NdPr, and that means that the total production, if it's in accordance with your normal standards, will be about 4,150 tonnes. Now that might seem like a bit stupid, but it does make a difference in terms of my analysis, which I look at, as Gaudenz will well know, on the cost per kilo, cost to produce. And I know it's a cash thing, but for me it's important. So I don't know whether there's a sensible question in there for you.
Yeah. All right. Sorry, now I forgot. The issue on the staff costs,
Yes.
that's actually related to the payment of short-term incentives, the cash component of the short-term incentives, which was paid in this quarter that we're reporting on, and clearly we don't get paid those again next quarter. So that's it. That's all it is. The second point with respect to the reduction in tonnes and the effect on cost, yes, that's real, but bear in mind as well, because this is cash, if we do turn down production, it won't be until, we'll probably do it early December, and so any savings which are associated with that won't show through in cash until January or February. So what you're actually seeing in the cash forecast is a reflection, typically our cash costs are 1 month lagged to incurring them. And so what you're essentially seeing in the quarterly is 3 months of full production in terms of cash outflow. But, it may be that in the third month of the quarter we have a lower production.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chris.
Excellent.
Thank you. The next question comes from the line of Andrew Chenside from Escala. Please go ahead.
Hi, Amanda. Congratulations on the quarterly. My question basically is on specifically on the review and the terms of reference. Two things. First of all, have you been notified specifically what the terms of reference are? And the second question is, if you haven't, what sort of contact have you had with the government or the committee?
So we haven't seen a detailed terms of reference. We've been given the advice that it is primarily a committee which is looking to safety of operations. We've been advised when the committee will be coming to visit our plant. So I think there's been a great deal of consistency around those sorts of matters. In terms of our ongoing engagement with government, we have most clearly and most focused a really strong ongoing engagement with the public service departments, which regulate our business. That has certainly been a core focus for us as we're seeking to ensure that we can continue our business as usual operations. And then, our various other stakeholder engagements, most of them are not particularly helpful to say, well, we met with this person, we met with that person. We understand the political landscape, and we certainly are engaging in a way that we think will assist us through that political landscape. Our view generally is that the review the review committee has been reformatted. It's now completely comprised of academics rather than politicians. Whilst everyone brings their own particular bias to any position that they have, and some of them no doubt will have not being intricately aware of Lynas operations, will have formed a general view on it, but we remain completely confident that we will always win through on the science, because the science is clear, the data on our operations is clear, the intrinsic risk from our operations is low, and our safety systems and processes and controls are excellent. So we generally are in a position at present where we think that continuing to engage positively with our regulators and positively with the committee when the committee members come to visit our plant is the thing which is going to steer us through that most positively. And then in terms of the politics, there's an issue around politics, issue around people, the importance of everyone understanding that Lynas Malaysia is not a bunch of Aussies or even other nationalities, but Lynas Malaysia is Malaysians. 97% of our workforce are Malaysians. And so we continue with our public communication campaign as well on this, because ultimately to win the politics, you do actually need to carry the people. So we have an extensive strategy on this. Part of my delight with this quarterly report is that, clearly I've had to spend a lot of my time actually involved in managing this process, and clearly we have now, sort of got the business in sufficiently good shape that they didn't even notice that I wasn't around, and they delivered a fabulous result. So how good's that? I think that we probably will still have a few more twists and turns in the process, in the process here, the political process here in Malaysia. But I'm pretty confident that we will find our way through this.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. And could I ask just one more question in terms of the approval to increase concentrate processing, otherwise potentially hitting NdPr production in this quarter? I think you said that you've got the first part of the approval through, but you're waiting for the second part. Can you just expand on that a bit?
Oh, there are two parts to the approval, because we have two regulating bodies, and one part is that we have an approval for how much we're allowed to import, and that's actually regulated by the AELB, and then we have a second part, and that's and we have a second part which is how much we're allowed to process, which is regulated by the DOE. You can't get two before you've got one, so we've now got one, and we'll go through two. We don't think it will be particularly controversial, because it sits within our current. Well, we got the ALB because it sits within our current radiation impact assessment, so our RIA, and so we expect that we will be able to get two through, but we feel that it's important that we flag this at this time. Just in case.
Okay. That's fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Go on.
Thank you. The next question comes from the line of Daniel Morgan from UBS. Please go ahead.
Hi everyone. Apologies, it appears I jumped off earlier somehow. I think much of my question on the revenue side was answered before. Basically, it looks like it's a product mix that was favourable during the period. I just wanted to see if you could possibly expand at all whether, you've put a lot more NdPr into the market over time. and in this quarter you sold more than you produced. Wondering if you feel you've had any impact on the market outside of what you were talking about on China. That's just my first question.
Possibly, but despite the fact that we are the second largest supplier in the market, we still haven't really got ourselves, I would say, to being a place where we're a price setter. And it certainly is part of our objective is how to sort of make that transition from being sort of a challenger to being a real leader in the market. I don't think that is really the issue here, and we did not sell much into the Chinese market this quarter at all. So, which is another influencing factor on the average price is that the more we sell out of China, outside of China, the better the outcome. So I don't think that it's us. I think that as sort of said, we said in the report, it's more about some internal China domestic market drivers rather than international drivers.
So thank you for that. Can I just ask a couple of follow-up questions, not on that, but you have been looking at splitting into more and more products and rejigging the plants, so splitting down into ND and PR as separate products and LA and CE. Can you talk a little bit more about that and what that opportunity is and when we might see the benefits of that? Thank you.
Only a little, actually, Daniel. I actually have to fess up to the fact that I have not made it to the new product development meeting for the last couple of weeks, several weeks actually, and so I can't tell you whether it's next quarter or the quarter after. But we do have the team is doing some substantive work around processing, and it's really about increasing the purity of those materials. Those two, just like I was talking about NdPr, the more we can sell it outside of China, the better. The only way that we can sell more outside China is to have some more high purity materials in that area. So it's a sort of effect. We get a little bit of benefit out of it even now. We do have sort of some areas where we've got a higher average price for our cerium than the market would indicate. But I think to really see some benefit from this, we're probably talking about moving into the 2019 financial year. Sorry, the one that starts on the 1st of July next year, because I can't bear to say 2020 because I know how old I'm going to be. So it won't be until next financial year, I think, that we really start to see some benefits from that. And as well as that, everyone keeps asking sort of what's next after next. And, the smart boys in operations are now turning their minds to that quite significantly. And I think that that's going to have some effect on what we do with the product mix as well.
Thank you. And one last question, if I may. You mentioned recoveries are improving. Can you possibly elaborate at all on that? And is there more to come potentially on that? Because I note that some of your constraints are, as you outlined, volume into Malaysia or volume that you can process. Is there more to come on recoveries?
A little, but we actually have made a big step, right? So if we talked about what was going to be our gap in getting us through to the end of the year on the imports, 3 months ago that gap was much bigger than it is today. And that is a reflection of the fact that the recoveries really have made a big step. And, we are much better at things like recognising a change in performance due to a change in ore faster. We went through a bit of pain about this time last year when we had new ore that came through from campaign 1B, I think, and we didn't really understand how it was performing differently, and it took us a little while to actually recognise it, then to diagnose it. Once it had been diagnosed, the ability to manage it was reasonably quick, but it was a longer process than I'd be happy with. We're much more alert to that now, and we respond much more quickly. But the really big issues have been the improvement in recoveries and cracking and leaching, and a lot of that's to do with the MGO neutralisation circuit, where we spent quite a lot of money, putting in the heat exchangers, changing the feed systems, a series of those sorts of things. So we have made a big step. I think we've got further incremental benefits from that. Cam's target that he's given to the ops team is certainly higher than today's performance, but I don't think we'll get another step change. Frankly, this quarter, particularly September, we really did benefit from that step change in recoveries. And the first task for us is to bank those and make sure that we hold them and that we don't drop back to previous numbers, and then we'll look at it.
Thank you. The next question comes from the line of Chris Hughes. Please go ahead.
Yes, Amanda, me again. Sorry about this. Just a quick one. You've already ticked the box at the 600 tonne per month, equating to 7,200 tonnes per annum in NdPr, which is the scheduled production under the stated output for next. You still aren't fully commissioned on next, so I guess the question is, are you setting a new target with an increased output for NdPr?
God, you're never happy, are you? No, we're not. We are fully commissioned on the things that relate to volume. The final piece of the commissioning is related to the separation of PR and ND. So in this quarter that's just passed, you would work out that if we said that, which we did, that we had over 600 tonnes in September, and in August we said despite the water problems, and bear in mind this result, we still had a 10-day water disruption in this quarter, that August we were on track for 600 if we hadn't had the water problems. So July was lower, and that was because in July we were cutting over to our SX7 train 4. That had become our bottleneck, where and I think as we were doing that, we got up to the stage of having, I think at its peak, about 70 tonnes in front of SX7, waiting for that cutover. So that was the final commissioning, which was volume related, and the commissioning which we will do, and it will have an effect on volume, whether or not we have the licensing change, is that we're commissioning the units which will separate the PR and the ND. And so the effect on volume there is that we actually have to fill up the new vessels, so we've got hold up of product actually in the processing vessels, and we will have to shut down one way or another for either a shorter or a longer period of time as we do that cutover. But there's nothing else which is going to give us extra tonnes, and it would give Cam a heart attack if I said, no, let's now shift it to 620 tonnes a month. Let us get sustainable performance at this level first, and then we'll talk about next steps.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chris.
Cheers.
Once again, if you wish to ask a question, please press star 1 on your telephone and wait for your name to be announced. If you wish to cancel a request, please press the pound or hash key. The next question comes from the line of Michael Henry. Please go ahead.
Hello, Amanda. I'm just ringing to inquire as to what recourse we would have against the Malaysian government in the event that a fully compliant plant were to be shut down as a result of this process.
Well, Michael, I would think that's highly unlikely. I'll let Andrew actually speak to it. He's sitting here and he's the lawyer, not me. So.
Yes, thanks for the question, Michael. As Amanda mentioned, I don't think it's helpful for us to speculate on hypotheticals at this stage. You know, we continue the strong engagement process up here, and that's our main focus.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The next question comes from the line of Rifat Savias. Please go ahead.
Hi, Amanda. I'm calling you from New York City. I'm a private investor for more than 10 years with Lynas. And I watch how you're doing, and you're doing a great job. Thank you for meeting all these challenges. My question is, to increase the demand on the rare earth products you have you contacted anybody at the United States? For example, the Department of Defense has declared that they don't want to depend on China, and they're looking for getting their needs from other sources like your company. Also, another consumer which could consume a lot of rare earths, like Elon Musk, CEO of Tesla. I don't know what's your relation with them, if you have explored their possible dealing with them. Also, I like to ask you what you could do to improve the stock price, which is in decline recently.
Okay. Thank you for the questions. I apologise because I didn't get your name.
Rifat Sawiris. Rifat.
Okay, thank you very much, Rifat. So first of all, your points about the US market, yes, we are very engaged and we understand those points. So the Department of Defense, the legislation which prohibits the purchase of magnets from the 4 unaligned nations with the US is meaningful for us and is meaningful for our discussions, not just with the DoD, but actually with the broader market in North America. I think that industry in North America has pretty clear understanding of the fact that in many instances the DoD leads and industry follows, and indeed often the types of things that the DoD does helps to set a market framework or market capability, which then benefits the private enterprise. So we're very alert to it and are engaged explicitly with relevant areas.
Very good.
In terms of the large US consumers, particularly so large consumers in the US of rare earth materials, the big oil companies and oil refineries, use a lot of lanthanum, and the catalyst producers are very US-centric, whilst the current legislation as it sits doesn't speak specifically to the catalysts. Certainly the catalyst manufacturers are much more keen, and I think that we might have mentioned it in here, or maybe it was in our board report, that we would expect that we're going to continue to grow. Yes, that our non-NdPr sales to the US will grow during the December quarter. And then in terms of magnetic materials, it's quite interesting. The US is not one of the large magnetic materials markets, but there are a few, sort of decent-sized consumers, so including people like Tesla, some of the consumer electronics manufacturers, and yes, we have direct relationships with them.
Very good, and this will help increasing the demand. How about what you're going to do to improve the price? How you deal
the share
with that?
price. I can't fix the share price, unfortunately, Rafas. I look at it and it does my head in most days. I don't understand. I think today we've, sort of delivered a terrific result, and, the share price is down, but then the whole of the market is down. So I actually can't determine the share price. Investors determine the share price, and I just have a fundamental belief that as we continue to produce a high-value business that delivers great results, that over time the share price will reflect it. But it's not one of the things I can control.
Eventually it will happen, yes. Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Terrific. Thank you all for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing as many of you as possible at our AGM in a month's time.